Hey everybody, it's Tim Miller at the Bulwark. Welcome back to our page. I couldn't be happier to be bringing on my buddy Stan Veuger from over at AEI. He's a senior fellow. He is a native Dutchman. So we have great news for the people of our YouTube feed, which is so rare. We get to do this together. The good news is in the Netherlands, not in America, but that's okay, right?
I think so.
Are we calling you Dutch? What do you call yourselves? What do we call the people of the Netherlands?
Well, we call ourselves Netherlands.
Netherlands.
Yeah. But Dutch is good. Dutch American.
Dutch is good.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, this is going to be a big change for me because for me, I always abided by the old, Austin Powers line that there are only two things in the world I can't stand: people who are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch, which we'll put on the screen for people, a little gold finger. But maybe that's not true. It just turned out it's not true. And I want to tell you why, Stan, because I read this article and it's like, it's almost too good to be true. The Dutch you're going to have a new prime minister, Rob Jetten. He's a gay man. All the good things are gay. He's married to Nicolas Keenan, an Argentine field hockey player, who I have to admit is kind of handsome. He ran for office as like a quasi, I guess, a center leftist. You can tell me. I'm reading this article. He is positive. He has a lot of positivity. He is an abundance liberal. He is patriotic. He says he wants to attack the far right aggressively when you need to. He also is pretty left on economics. But he's for a big tent. I mean, pinch me. Is this true? Is this what's happening?
Well, that's mostly true. He wants to build 10 new cities, he says, like real abundance, liberalism there.
New cities. I'm for new cities.
Yeah, so that all sounds okay. A little more lefty on economics than I would like to see. And so I think, he's been reasonably inspirational as those things go. Geert Wilders, who is our sort of famous right-wing politician, predates Trump even. He's our longest-serving member of parliament by an 8-year margin now. Like, he's never going to go away.
Really?
His party
the most famous moment about Geert Wilders, where I learned about him, was he showed up at a Twinks for Trump event in New York in like 2015. So he's been a far-right ideologue, kind of a nationalist, populist, like even...
And they're very anti-Muslim, very anti-immigration. You can kind of tell he is like a far-right populist from like 20 years ago. Right? Those are his issues. So his party, after our previous election 2 years ago, had become the largest party. But last week, he lost a third of his seats. So I think that is definitely good news. To go back to your hatred of the Dutch a little bit, the bad news is that all those seats that Wilders lost have gone to other heinous parties. And so the populist right, so to speak, has remained of the same size. It's just their seats have gotten redistributed. So Wilders lost a bunch of seats to a party that, I don't know, sort of the Kevin Roberts faction, fashion-friendly, but does some respectability politics. And he also lost some seats to what you might think of as the Nick Fuentes faction. Very comfortable with conspiracy theories, lost a bunch of MPs over a fight around anti-Semitism, that kind of stuff. But so the far right as a whole, I think, has maintained its place in Dutch politics, which is not good news.
Though there's something that can be learned from this. It's all this. And the point, obviously, there's a lot of differences in the Netherlands and America, but you can get to, and the system is different, right? Like there aren't going to, the Republican Party is not going to fragment out into three different
That's right.
parties,
it's pure proportional representation. Yeah.
Yeah. That said, though, wedging the right, I kind of learning that, look, this is possible to wedge the right. Like that they can be wedged between kind of a far right, more openly anti-Semitic party, more whatever, traditionally Pat Buchananite, whatever you want to call it, like nationalist populist party, and then kind of like a conservative Christian conservative, right? Like there's a way to get Fuentes and Mike Pence and the major body of MAGA and kind of cleave them off from each other to weaken the political powers of the right. I think there are probably some lessons to learn from that. Did the left parties do that intentionally, or just kind of did they light their own house on fire on the Wilders side?
I'd say they mostly lit their house on fire themselves, especially that Fuentes-esque party, the Forum for Democracy. They had people leave over just really self-inflicted wounds. I would also say it's not really the left here that's been successful. It's really the broad center. The Dutch left, I would describe as being in just complete despair. They're sort of two large parties, the Green Left and the Labour Party. The Labour Party used to be one of our two large parties, right? We had a Christian Democratic Party and a Labour Party. The Labour Party is in the middle of merging with the Green Left, and their goal was really to unite the left. Instead, what they've done is they lost seats. So they're now down to 20 out of 150 seats. You have a few other more fringy left-wing parties to their left, but if you take the left as a whole, they got smaller. So you have an animal rights party, you have a Turkish nationalist party, you have all sorts of flavors. But
it's
even
way
if you
more
add
fun
them all
over
up,
there. That's cute.
yeah, no, it's good. In fact, the animal rights party, the Party for the Animals, it's been around for a while. They got into a fight during this election campaign where a bunch of their founders quit because they were upset that the Party for the Animals was supportive of increased defense spending under the NATO banner. So they started their own separate animal rights party called Peace for Animals, which is for animal rights and against increased defense spending. So we have all of our flavors, but even if you add up all the different Judean Popular Front parties, it still adds up to very little. And so that's important to keep in mind too. It's a resurgence of the center more than the resurgence of the left.
Well, sure, and again, there's something to be learned from this because this goes to what we're talking about on the center left and the resistance in America. We don't have to navigate a pro-war animal rights faction, really, but there are factions you got to deal with, and so the centrist party that won, the D66 with Rob Jetton, the appears to win that he's poised to be the prime minister. As I mentioned at the top, and he went with what they describe as kind of a progressive patriotism type message. Proudly kind of pro Dutch, wearing orange, doing that sort of stuff.
Dutch flags,
not kind of being a left party that like down talks everything that is happening about societal progress. And in addition to that, as we kind of mentioned a little bit at the top, I want to go through all this kind of what they want to do on the economic side. Possibly the center left was strengthened because they kind of co-opted some of the left messaging or some of the left policies on economics. They proposed a millionaire's tax. That worked. More progressive inheritance and gift tax. The abolition of a regressive mortgage interest deduction. And so they do kind of co-opt some of these left, redistributionist economic policies, but at least in this article, you tell me if you agree with this. There's no like degrowth talk. None of the like kind of the anti-capitalist.
No, and I think
element.
I also think they're going to because we have so many different small parties. They're going to have to end up forming a coalition with at least two parties that are to their right, and so a lot of those more lefty economic policies are not actually going to happen, which I think also made people a little more comfortable voting for them. But you may see the mortgage interest deduction getting phased out, right? So some of that will survive. But I think more important than that was really the upbeat tone, positivism, the Dutch flags everywhere, EU flags as well, by the way. So, a little more of a cosmopolitan nationalism, you might call it. I do agree with that that tone was important, that it's not all, everything is bad, capitalism is horrible, it definitely did not have that tone. And then, as you mentioned, Jetton himself is very young. He's 38. A good-looking gay guy. That all helps. I think.
Okay, let's go ahead and put him up on the screen. I don't want to make you uncomfortable here, Stan, but let's look at him and here and his husband. Not bad to look at. I mean, this stuff matters in politics. But what else besides just the superficial did you think did he succeed in messaging-wise strategically?
Yeah, just staying upbeat, talking about a positive agenda, new cities, growth, that kind of stuff. Not complaining about inequality. Obviously, talking about where he might get some revenue, but the goal is not to eradicate millionaires as a class or something like that, right? It's to have to collect revenue from different sources. Yeah, very comfortable with free trade, all those things. It's a lot more neoliberal than sort of an American left-wing agenda often sounds. Yeah.
It's interesting, and again, obviously, you don't want to overinterpret all this stuff. That we're taping this right now on election day, and presumably Zoran Mondani will win the New York mayor's race. And I think that after when somebody has political success comes out from nowhere, everybody's trying to co-opt what it means to match their own prior ideological interests. And I think all this stuff is complicated. And I think that Zoran's success is surely, at least in New York City, in his progressive economic views, his views against Israel, surely helped gain excitement in the left side of his party. Also, though, his affect is what you're saying. He was very positive. He's smiling. He's uplifting. He's talking about giving people opportunity. Like, it is not dour. It is, it is not downbeat. And he's good at that part of politics. And there's kind of been this question among whatever you want to call it, the neoliberal abundance faction, is like, can we have our Zoran? Like, is that possible? And who knows whether that's possible in America? But it sounds like Yeltsin, like, basically, like, at least at the superficial level, not the policy level, is kind of offering that. Like, can I be a positive person that's focused on economic opportunity and the things that people are worried about, and do it from a more center position?
Yeah, and it's a little easier too in the Netherlands to rely on sort of pure campaign tactics, because there are so many different parties, and really, if you gain a few percentage points here and there, you can jump from being relatively small to relatively big. You don't have to unite 50% of the country under one banner, and so I think that also makes those tactical moves a little more deterministic than they are in the U.S., where you have these broad underlying ideological divides that you have to navigate carefully.
What about, where did you land on immigration? I mean, obviously, immigration was such a flashpoint there for Wilders and across Europe, really, and it's driven a big part of the rise of the populist right. Like, how did he navigate the immigration?
It remains a major issue. So our two most recent governments fell over disputes over asylum policy, which, of course, in immigration politics in Europe is more important, because there's a lot of immigration that takes place within the European Union. A lot of labor migration operates on the open borders because there's free movement within the European Union. So you cannot really control that part. And so a lot more of the focus is on refugee policy, asylum policy. What Yeltsin did there is he sounded a little more restrictionist than D66 had done before. And that was true in general for parties, I think, on the sort of center left in the Netherlands. You had the Labor Green Left combination, and even the formerly Maoist Socialist Party. They both announced like numerical targets, which they'd never done before. Numerical targets that are comparable, sort of, once you characterize a country, with what we had in the U.S. pre-Biden. So, like net million a year migration or so, that scaled down for the Netherlands. And so that was, I think, really a move that showed they realized that it's one issue where I think the sort of elite in the Netherlands had gotten out of line with the voting public. A bit like in the U.S. I think you see that in quite a few countries where public opinion is just clearly more conservative than elite opinion. And so, they adjust a little bit to that, and I think it's worked. We'll see what they do with it when they're in government. One thing that really helped there is, of course, Wilders was in government, or his party was in government before the election, and they didn't really accomplish anything on that front or on any other front.
Well, we'll do one more picture here of Rob Yeltsin, just in case people are wondering. And then my final question for you is...
we've got a whole new generation of elderly millennials, by the way, now in control. Everyone's 40.
Things are going to turn around. Stan, we're the only sane generation. Okay, the elder millennials, we came up. Our brains weren't broken by the phones. Because during our childhood and teen years, we did not have phones, right? But then we're early enough adopters that we can understand how to navigate the phones. So everyone above us is insane because they didn't understand how to navigate it. Their brains were broken by Fox. Everyone below us is addicted to phones. Jonathan Haidt, the anxious generation. We're the sweet spot. So as long as you put gay elder millennials in charge of your country, things might be looking up.
Or even straight elder
or even straight. Sure, whatever. I'll let a straight one happen too. Final question then, Stan. Any thoughts on remigration? I don't know. Things D66 sounding a little better than what we're putting forth here in America.
So one thing, jokes aside, one thing that I think is going to really help D66 on the migration front is that the Assad regime, of course, was toppled about a year ago, and so inflows of Syrians have gone down Syrian refugees have gone down by a lot, and quite a few Syrians now want to go back, and so I think that will be something for them to point to, and of course, it's a positive development across the board, and so hopefully that'll help them.
Felt like a duck of my question about you, though. Are you going to be replacing a Syrian moving back?
I'll be here. I'll be here.
You'll be here.
I'll be here for now. We'll see how the nature of the regime evolves.
Yeah, I had a great 2 days in Amsterdam this summer.
Okay.
The bikes are scary. Bikes are coming at you.
They come from everywhere. Yeah.
But it is a beautiful country. Stan Veuger, we'll be checking back in with you on all things economics and Netherlands as we move forward in the coming months. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, Tim.